No one could get near him. The German Shepherd, once full of potential, had become a shadow of fear and fury. His growls sent shivers down spines, his eyes filled with a warning that kept even the most experienced handlers at bay. Abused, abandoned, and forgotten, he was deemed too dangerous, unreachable. That is, until she walked in. She was just a child. Small, quiet, no different than any other little girl except for the warmth in her eyes and the way she moved without fear. While adults flinched, she stood firm. While others shouted commands, she whispered gently. And the dog, this untouchable beast, didn't growl. He watched. He listened. Days passed. She sat by his kennel, reading stories aloud, offering treats, and speaking with a patience that only children possess. Slowly, his posture softened. His tail gave a hesitant wag. Then one day, the miracle happened. He approached her, nuzzling her hand, not with aggression, but trust. The shelter staff were stunned. A dog once considered hopeless was healing, all because of a little girl's love. She didn't use force. She used empathy. And in doing so, she unlocked the heart of a creature the world had given up on. He was a force of fury, snarling behind the bars, eyes sharp with warning. This German Shepherd had a reputation, aggressive, unpredictable, and broken by a past filled with neglect and abuse. No one could touch him. No one even dared to try anymore. He had been written off, destined for a lonely end. That's when she came in. A little girl with pigtails and a quiet smile, no taller than the kennel door, stood in front of him without fear. She didn't flinch at his growl. She didn't yell or try to control him. Instead, she sat. Day after day, she returned, just sitting, reading softly, sliding bits of food under the bars. She gave him space, but more importantly, she gave him kindness. At first, he just watched. Confused. Curious. Then something shifted, his growl turned into a whimper, his rigid body relaxed. One afternoon, he crept forward and gently touched his nose to her fingers. In that moment, the fierce soul melted. It wasn't training or discipline that reached him, it was the quiet power of a child's unconditional love. She saw not the aggression, but the pain. And through her heart, he found healing. He was feared by everyone who walked past his kennel. The German Shepherd, once a proud and beautiful dog, had become aggressive, unpredictable, and heartbreakingly isolated. His body bore the scars of a troubled past, likely abuse and abandonment, and his eyes warned everyone to stay away. Volunteers tried. Trainers gave up. Even the shelter staff approached with caution. No one could touch him. Then she arrived. A quiet girl, no older than 10, with a calm presence that seemed to soften the air around her. While others looked at the dog with fear, she saw something else: pain, sadness, and a longing to be understood. Instead of trying to control him, she simply sat nearby, reading her book, humming, and letting him come to her in his own time. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, the shepherd's tense posture began to loosen. His snarls quieted. One afternoon, he took a brave step forward and let her touch him. Just a light hand on his head, but it was everything. The shelter watched in awe. This child had done what no adult could. With patience, love, and gentleness, she broke through the wall he'd built and gave him a reason to trust again. He was known as the unapproachable one. A large German Shepherd with a deep growl and eyes full of warning. His past was a mystery, but his behavior spoke volumes. He had been hurt, betrayed, and left to defend himself. No one could get close. Even experienced handlers stayed back, fearing a bite, a lunge, or worse. He lived in isolation, behind steel bars, surrounded by whispers of hopelessness. Then came a little girl with a gentle voice and a brave heart. She didn't see the danger others feared. She saw a soul crying out for love. Day after day, she visited the shelter, sitting quietly outside his kennel. No sudden moves, no loud words, just soft stories, kind eyes, and a hand held out with a treat. Slowly, the dog began to change. His bark lessened. His tail twitched. His gaze softened. And then, one extraordinary day, he came to her. He placed his head on her lap, as if to say, "I trust you." The shelter staff stood in stunned silence. The dog no one dared approach had let her in, not because she forced him, but because she understood him. A little girl's love had done what no one else could: heal a wounded heart. He had been labeled dangerous. The German Shepherd, with his hardened stare and warning growls, had terrified anyone who came near. Shelter staff approached with caution, trainers shook their heads, and potential adopters walked away. He wasn't just aggressive, he was broken, the result of a life filled with fear, pain, and abandonment. His future looked grim, his chances of rehabilitation slim to none. Then, his unexpected savior appeared. She was no expert, no seasoned dog handler, just a little girl with wide eyes and a gentle heart. While others avoided him, she was drawn to him. Where others saw a threat, she saw a soul in need. Without fear, she sat outside his kennel, speaking softly, reading her books, and letting him exist without judgment. It started with a glance. Then a quiet whine. One day, he stepped closer and laid his head against the bars, drawn to her calm presence. The shelter watched in disbelief. This girl, small and unassuming, became the key to his healing. Not with commands or training, but with compassion. She reminded him what trust felt like. What love could be. In a world that gave up on him, she showed up and changed everything. He was the kind of dog people whispered about. A large, battered German Shepherd with a history no one knew, but everyone feared. He barked at every approach, lunged at every hand, and trusted no one. He had been passed from shelter to shelter, each one marking him as unadoptable. The world had given up on him. But she hadn't. A little girl, no older than 9, came to the shelter one afternoon with her mother. While others walked past his kennel in avoidance, she stopped. She didn't see a monster, she saw someone who was hurting. Day after day, she returned. She brought books, sat cross-legged on the floor, and read to him through the bars. She didn't flinch when he barked. She didn't retreat when he growled. She waited. And slowly, something changed. The growling quieted. His eyes softened. Then one day, he pressed his nose to the bars, touching her hand with the gentlest nudge. It was the first contact he allowed in months. The staff were stunned. The dog no one believed in had found hope through the quiet courage of a child. She reached him not with force, but with patience, kindness, and the purest kind of love. He came to the shelter angry and afraid. The German Shepherd had been through things no one could fully understand: neglect, abuse, abandonment. He snapped at anyone who got too close, his body always tense, eyes filled with warning. Trainers tried. Volunteers kept their distance. Everyone agreed, he was too far gone. Then a little girl walked in. She was small, gentle, and unafraid. While others turned away, she sat down quietly beside his kennel. She didn't force her presence, she offered it. She read to him in a soft, steady voice. She spoke to him like he was already her friend. And most importantly, she showed up every single day. At first, he didn't respond. But then, slowly, he began to listen. He stopped barking when she approached. He started sitting near her instead of retreating. One day, he pressed his paw against the bars, just once, but it was everything. From that moment on, he changed. It wasn't training or treats that saved him. It was her love, pure, patient, and without expectations. A love that saw through his fear and reminded him what it meant to be safe. In a world that hurt him, a child's heart helped him heal. He was the dog no one dared to approach. A powerful German Shepherd, scarred by a life of cruelty and neglect, who met every human with growls and bared teeth. His body was tense, his eyes hard, he had learned that people meant pain. Shelter workers labeled him aggressive. Even experienced trainers struggled. No one could reach him. Until she did. A young girl, barely 10, walked up to his kennel with a calmness that quieted the room. She didn't yell or command. She didn't flinch at his bark. She simply sat down and spoke. Soft words. Gentle tones. Day after day, she returned, her voice a comforting rhythm, reading books aloud, telling him stories, and whispering reassurances. And something remarkable happened. His growl faded. His ears perked. He began to sit and listen, not as a threat, but as a friend. Then came the moment no one believed possible. He approached, rested his head on the bars, and closed his eyes as she stroked his fur. She didn't train him. She didn't tame him. She healed him. With nothing more than kindness and patience, this little girl reached a heart that had been closed off for so long. And finally, the dog listened.